Good evening.
Can't hear you, Chris.
Yeah. I'd like to start out by asking everyone to raise their glasses.
Chris. It's a can.
And a can. And offer a toast.
Mom, will you get my
To all of yourselves. There we go. Is that better? Offer a toast to all of yourselves for coming out tonight. But also to Keith and Sandy Pickett. And Ron, Jim, and Harrison. Because without them, this amazing evening wouldn't have been possible. So, cheers. Oh, before I forget to say this here. Keith, I know you're the mayor of Malkin's Run, but council met last night, and they all voted. And since I'm the best man tonight, I got my sticker, buddy. And I ain't giving it back. I promise you that.
I want to know where you got it at.
Can't tell you. I'd also like to take a moment here to thank Matt and Tiffany for asking me to be the best man. It's truly an honor to be a part of such a wonderful celebration. It's also a privilege that Matt, after all these years, finally admits that I am, in fact, the best man. As soon as Matt asked me to be the best man, I researched all my responsibilities, started preparing for this speech. Naturally, I turned to my family and friends for a helping hand. And the one piece of advice that everyone kept telling me is keep it short and sweet. But how long is short and sweet? Is 5 minutes enough? No. Is 10 minutes too much? Then someone else, has mentioned keep it as long as a groom can make love. And apparently, the combination of short and sweet and how long Matt can make love is less than 1 minute. And Tiffany confirmed this calculation. Speaking of Tiffany, can I get a round of applause for how beautiful she looks tonight, please? And as for Matt, my mother always told me that if you have anything nice to say, just don't say it at all. Tiff's not only beautiful, but she's also smart, funny, warm, loving, and caring. All of which are characteristics deserving of a good husband. So thank God she married Matt before she found that person. A couple years ago, I can remember Matt telling me that he went out to lunch with a really pretty girl. After he filled me in on all the details, I asked him who it was. I said, I'm not telling you because if it doesn't work out, I don't want to make a big deal. I don't want you to make a big deal out of you giving me a hard time. When I finally found out who that person was, I couldn't wait to meet her, I wanted to get to know her. Over 2 years later, I now know that Tiffany is one of the most kind-hearted people that I've ever met. She always welcomes you with open arms and a huge smile. All in all, she's just a downright great person that you can always be yourself around. And trust me, I've tested all these great qualities very thoroughly.
I'll cover you up tonight.
Thank you very much. Yeah, couch. Take the spot on the couch for me. Now, I've been on the third wheel on many dates. The third wheel on many dates, like bowling, for example, and not once did I ever feel like I didn't belong. She's been her DD on various occasions and never complained, not even once. I could go on and on, but I'm so happy and thankful that my best friend has someone as special as her to spend the rest of his life with. This is long, I'm telling you right now. So. As previously mentioned, I did a lot of research in preparing for this speech. And then I found out, according to tradition, I'm supposed to sing the groom's praises and tell you all about his many good points. I'm very sorry to say that I can't sing, and I won't lie. However, I'm fairly decent at telling a story or two that involve Matt and I. But more than likely, I'm involved in all of them, and it's going to ruin my impeccable reputation. But nevertheless, I've got one story, just one, that's PG-13. I think we all know how important hunting is to Matt, especially deer season. You know what this is, don't you? Dip. A few years ago, Matt was looking forward to hunting the first week of gun season, months before it was even supposed to start. However, when he got his work schedule, he realized that he had to work the first 4 days of the season, and obviously wasn't real happy about it. So being the friend that I am, I went over to his house when he got off of work on a Thursday evening with a quart of distilled water in hopes of cheering him up. I have no idea what was in that water, but it sure made me feel funny. Until about 4 o'clock that next morning. A couple hours later, I heard Matt yelling, "Get your camouflage on. We're going on the hill to kill a deer." I wasn't feeling too hot at the time, but I didn't want to disappoint my old buddy. So we get ready, head up to his stand, and get settled in. After watching the sunrise and setting in a cramped up tree stand meant for one man, not two hefty boys like ourselves, I began to get a little restless. You know what it is now? Alright. I started moving around, adjusting my gloves and asking questions. I realized that Matt wasn't too happy with my antics when he told me to sit still and shut up. But being the good Christian boy that I am, I followed orders and settled down. That very moment, I got a sudden urge that moved from the tips of my toes directly to the back of my throat. Oddly enough, that distilled water didn't taste nearly as good coming up as it was going down. After I finished my business, Matt looked at me, shook his head, and proceeded to get out of the stand and head off the hill. Matt's never invited me again. Never. I asked him if he wanted to go squirrel hunting this morning. In all seriousness, Matt is one of the most genuine people that I've ever met. He's also one of the most loyal people that I've ever met. He's the type of person who will drop anything in a heartbeat and do anything in his power to lend a helping hand. Whether it's fixing up a vehicle, and Tiffany knows a lot about that, giving you advice, or assisting you in pulling your head out of your ass. Matt is your guy. I'm so lucky and fortunate to be able to call Matt my best friend. I can't thank you enough for all that you do for me. In closing, so we'll get back to eating here in a minute. In closing, over the past few years, I can count on one hand the amount of days that Matt and Tiffany have been away from each other. You know what? If you haven't got sick of each other yet, it's not going to happen. And that's what I call true love. Because marriage is not about finding a person you can live with. It's about finding the person you can't live without. You're going to have your good days, you're going to have your bad days, but in the end, you'll always have each other. So, ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to raise your glasses and toast to Mr. and Mrs. Matthew Pickett. To love, to laughter, and to a happy ever after. Cheers.
All right, can we get the new Mr. and Mrs. Pickett to go to the cake?